title your book Streetwise, and I think it sort of has a double meaning, meaning the really rough street you grew up on in Brooklyn, and then, of course, Wall Street happens. But let me start in Brooklyn. You grew up in a housing project, a school that's pretty unsafe. You're scared to go to the bathroom at times, and yet you call that chapter, I think you call it Advantages. What were the advantages?
Well, there's some irony in that name. I did grow up in public housing. I did go to a high school that they shut down shortly after I left as a failed high school because not very many people were graduating. And I would say the advantages of that are low expectations by me and of me and for me. And so it was also produced a lot of motivation to get out. And frankly, that my earliest motivation that I can recall, nobody in my family and even my sibling hadn't gone to college. And I didn't know anybody. None of the parents that I knew of other kids went to white collar. In fact, I didn't remember anybody having a suit. Very blue collar. Not necessarily that different from, a lot of people. It was very motivating. It was very motivating.
Well, wait, so how did you get to Harvard?
The thing that I was reaching for, the carrot that I was reaching for was to go to an out-of-town school. And I wasn't contemplating an Ivy League school. Frankly, I wasn't even sure, I can't even recall whether I even knew what that was. But I did go to a college night at a high school in a nicer neighborhood. I went in, nobody was checking IDs. There was no metal detector in those days getting into New York City public schools. And I went in and there were various booths and I crossed a booth that was occupied by, I thought it was a grown-up. It was probably a young guy, but to me, it looked like an old guy. And he was from Harvard. There were other people there from other Ivy League schools. I took an application from him. We chatted. He couldn't have been nicer. And I think I filled out that application like you'd fill out a landing form if you got off an airplane. In other words, I didn't, there were questions and I wrote answers to them. I didn't approach it like I would a test today, knowing what I know today. And somehow they took me, which is why I'm always great. By the way, I didn't get into every school, but I did get into that one. And that was a good one to get into. And it was culture shock when I get there. I'm not sure it was a great place for me to go, given the adjustments I had to make. But I'll tell you, it was a great place to have gone for all the doors that got opened to you. But by the time I was done with 4 years, I should have started then. I was then prepared to first get into Harvard as a result of my 4 years there. But there was some, acculturation and difficulty.